The bolt of energy singed Kara's shoulder as she dove behind a pile of twisted metal. The wound burned, adding to the collection of injuries that threatened to overwhelm her. Blood streamed from her right eye where a piece of shrapnel had struck during their escape from the Council flagship. Her vision blurred, but she forced herself to focus on their desperate situation. "They're closing in!" Leon shouted from his position 10 meters away, crouched behind what remained of an old ship's navigation console. The human's face was streaked with dirt and blood, his normally calm demeanor replaced by the sharp focus of survival. 3 security officers in black armor moved in perfect formation down the corridor, their weapons sweeping methodically across the abandoned docking bay of HFY 9. The massive space station, once a bustling hub of commerce, now a graveyard for decommissioned ships and outdated technology, provided countless hiding places, but also countless dead ends. Kara's fingers found the primitive weapon strapped to her thigh, a bone-handled knife crafted from industrial-grade metal, its edge honed to molecular sharpness. No energy signature, no tech to trace, just cold, reliable steel. Her people had used such weapons for millennia before technology changed everything. With practiced precision, she flicked the blade through the air. It struck the lead officer in the gap between helmet and shoulder armor, finding the vulnerable flesh beneath. He fell without a sound, blood pooling beneath him. The other officers spun toward Kara's position, weapons raised. Before they could fire, Leon emerged from cover, a length of metal pipe in his hands. He swung it with devastating force, catching the nearest officer across the temple. The guard crumpled, helmet dented inward. The third officer managed to get off a shot. The energy pulse caught Leon in the side, sending him stumbling backward. Kara moved without thinking, launching herself across the space between them with the fluid grace of her species. She tackled the remaining guard, her weight driving him to the ground. They struggled briefly before her hands found his neck, twisting with precise force. A crack echoed through the cavernous space, then stillness. "Leon!" Kara crawled to where the human lay gasping, his hand pressed against his injured side. "I'm fine," he managed, though his grimace told another story. "Just a graze." Kara helped him to his feet, supporting his weight. "We need to move deeper into the station. Find a place to regroup." Leon nodded, wincing as they began moving down a darkened corridor. "They knew we were coming," he said between labored breaths. "Someone must have tipped them off." "Questions later," Kara replied, her keen hearing already picking up the sound of reinforcements. "Survival first." They navigated through the labyrinthine corridors of HFY 9, avoiding the main thoroughfares where security would concentrate their search. Kara's natural night vision gave her an advantage in the dimly lit passages, allowing her to guide them through service tunnels and maintenance shafts rarely used, even when the station was fully operational. An hour later, they found temporary sanctuary in what had once been a storage bay for spare parts. Mechanical debris and forgotten equipment lay scattered across the massive room, perfect for concealment. Kara helped Leon down against a wall, then examined his wound. "The blast cauterized it," she noted with professional detachment. "Painful, but not life-threatening." "Unlike yours," Leon replied, gesturing to her face. The wound above her right eye had finally stopped bleeding, but infection was a serious risk, especially in the dust-filled environment of the abandoned station. Kara shrugged. "I've had worse." "That doesn't make me feel better," Leon muttered, tearing a strip from his undershirt to create a makeshift bandage. With surprising gentleness for a human, he cleaned the area around her eye and secured the dressing in place. "Hold still," he instructed when she flinched. "Can't have you losing that eye. I've gotten used to both of them glaring at me." Despite everything, Kara found herself smiling at his attempt at humor. Such a strange species, these humans, finding levity even in the darkest moments. The moment of peace shattered as a distant alarm began to wail. Kara's head snapped up, her sensitive hearing analyzing the pattern. "Sector-wide alert," she said grimly. "They're expanding the search." Leon's expression hardened. "We can't stay here, but you need rest. That eye needs treatment, and you've lost too much blood." "We don't have time." "Make time," Leon cut her off. "I didn't drag you across 3 star systems just to watch you collapse from exhaustion." Kara wanted to argue, but the room had begun to spin alarmingly around her. Her species' natural regenerative abilities were impressive, but even they had limits. And those limits had been pushed well beyond their capacity during their flight from the Council flagship. Fine, she conceded reluctantly. 1 hour. No more. Leon nodded, already scanning their surroundings for a more defensible position. There, he pointed to a partially dismantled cargo ship nestled among larger debris. The hull shielding should block bioscanners. We can rest there while I figure out our next move. With Leon supporting most of her weight now, they made their way to the abandoned vessel. Its outer hull had been partially stripped for valuable components, but the inner compartments remained intact. Leon helped Kara inside, guiding her to a protected niche where the thick, lead-lined walls would mask her life signs from security scanners. "You stay here," he said, arranging a pile of discarded packing materials into a crude but serviceable bed. "I'll find us a way out." Kara grabbed his wrist as he turned to leave. Don't come back if it's dangerous," she managed, hating the weakness in her voice but unable to suppress it any longer. Leon's expression softened. He covered her hand with his own. "I won't leave you. Never have, never will." As he disappeared into the shadows of the station, Kara fought to stay conscious, but her body had other ideas. Darkness claimed her, dragging her into blessed oblivion. Leon moved through the abandoned corridors of Harpex 9 with practiced stealth. His time as a cargo runner in the lawless outer systems had taught him how to stay invisible in hostile territory, a skill that had kept him alive during countless close calls. But this time, the stakes were higher than ever before. The data encoded in the nanocard embedded in his eye could bring down the entire Interstellar Council. Proof of secret deals with the Krell Dominion, of colony worlds' sacrifice for technological advantages, of corruption that reached to the highest levels of galactic governance. Data that Kara had risked everything to obtain. Data that powerful people would kill to suppress. His immediate goal was simple: find transportation off the station. A shuttle, a maintenance drone, even an emergency escape pod, anything capable of carrying them to the rendezvous point where Tarak waited with his smuggling vessel. The transmission sector seemed the most logical place to start, a central hub where communication and navigational systems would be concentrated and where he might find information about available transport. Leon paused at an intersection, listening for security patrols. Hearing nothing, he continued toward what station schematics indicated was a primary access terminal. The corridors became less cluttered as he approached the station's operational center, increasing the risk of detection, but also improving his chances of finding what they needed. The terminal room was empty when he slipped inside, locking the door behind him. The console hummed with power, one of the few systems still functioning at full capacity on the mostly abandoned station. Leon's fingers moved across the interface, bypassing basic security protocols with tricks learned during his less reputable jobs. Schematics of the station appeared on the screen, confirming what he had suspected. Most escape pods had been stripped long ago, their components salvaged for more valuable applications. But in the auxiliary docking bay, a promising signal caught his eye. An automated cargo drone, outdated but operational, used for transferring materials between sections of the sprawling junkyard. "That could work," he muttered, downloading the drone's specifications to his personal datapad. With modifications, it might manage a short FTL jump to the rendezvous point. As he turned to leave, a high-pitched whine froze him in place. An infrared security drone hovered in the corner of the room, its sensors locked onto his position. Before Leon could react, the drone emitted a pulse that swept across his face. "Biometric anomaly detected," an automated voice announced. "Foreign nanostructures identified in ocular tissue." Leon cursed under his breath. The nanocard. He'd forgotten it might trigger security systems calibrated for exactly that kind of technology. The station's alarms blared to life as he lunged for the door, only to find it sealed by emergency protocols. The terminal behind him flashed red, displaying his captured image alongside a security alert. "Detain immediately." Footsteps pounded down the corridor outside, security responding with shocking speed. Leon's hand went to the makeshift weapon tucked into his belt, a metal shard honed to a razor edge, his only defense against whatever came through that door. The door hissed open. 5 armed guards poured into the room, weapons trained on his chest. Behind them stood a tall figure in the distinctive black uniform of Council Intelligence. silver insignia gleaming on the collar, face a mask of professional detachment. "Subject identified," the intelligence officer said coolly. "Priority 1 asset. Take him alive." Leon gauged his odds, 5 against 1, in confined quarters, with only a makeshift knife against energy weapons. Not good, but not impossible. He'd faced worse. His hand moved in a blur, the metal shard flying toward the lead guard's exposed throat. As the man fell, Leon was already moving, diving low to tackle the second guard at the knees. Chaos erupted in the confined space. Shouts, the distinctive whine of energy weapons charging, the crack of bone as Leon's elbow connected with a guard's jaw. For a brief, glorious moment, it seemed he might actually fight his way free. Then something struck him from behind. Not an energy weapon, but something far worse. Pain exploded at the base of his skull, radiating outward in waves of electric agony. Neuroshock. His muscles locked, his vision filling with static as his nervous system overloaded. As consciousness faded, his last thought was of Kara, hidden and vulnerable. At least she was safe. At least they hadn't found her. Yet, Kara jolted awake, instantly alert despite the throbbing pain in her head. Something had changed, some subtle shift in the environment that her subconscious had registered as threat. She remained motionless, extending her senses outward, cataloging her surroundings. The cargo ship's interior was silent, too silent. The distant hum of the station's systems had changed pitch, indicating increased power consumption in specific sectors. They were sweeping the station, systematically, methodically. Kara checked her chronometer. 6 hours had passed since Leon left. Far too long for a simple reconnaissance mission. Something had gone wrong. Moving carefully, she eased herself from her hiding place. Her body protested, muscles stiff, wounds aching. But her mind was clear now, the fog of exhaustion temporarily lifted by concern for her companion. The station's recycled air carried new information to her sensitive olfactory receptors. Ozone from recently discharged energy weapons. The distinctive scent of military-grade lubricant used on council-issue armor joints. Traces of human blood. Kara moved silently through the storage bay, keeping to shadows, placing each step with predatory precision. She needed information, needed to know what had happened to Leon. A functioning terminal was her best bet. She found one in a repair alcove, a simple diagnostic console used for evaluating salvage components. It took her precious minutes to bypass the security lockouts, time during which she remained acutely aware of her exposure should a patrol pass by. The terminal came to life under her skilled manipulation. Kara navigated through subsystems until she found the security feeds. What she saw confirmed her worst fears. Footage showed Leon being dragged, half-conscious, through a security checkpoint. Timestamp, 4 hours ago. Destination, the central interrogation facility deep within the station's core. Kara's expression hardened as she accessed the station's schematics. The interrogation facility was heavily fortified, accessible only through monitored corridors with multiple security checkpoints. A frontal assault would be suicide, but Kara had never been one for frontal assaults. She closed her eyes, mentally calculating odds, resources, possible approaches. When they snapped open again, they held the cold determination that had made her one of the most feared operatives in the Galactic fringe. First, she needed weapons, real ones, not just the knife strapped to her thigh, and something to compensate for her injuries, which would slow her down in a direct confrontation. Kara moved deeper into the storage bay, hunting among the discarded technology for components she could repurpose. Her people were natural engineers, able to see the potential in forgotten tech that others dismissed as junk. An outdated security drone yielded servo motors and reaction plates. A broken cargo lifter provided structural elements and power cells. Medical equipment from an abandoned triage station offered stimulants and stabilizers for her injuries. Hour by hour, piece by piece, Kara assembled what she needed. An exoskeleton built from salvaged drone parts, crude but effective, designed to support her injured body and augment her natural strength. A makeshift spear fashioned from a maintenance tool, its tip honed to lethal sharpness. A shield created from hull plating, light enough to carry but strong enough to deflect energy weapons at certain angles. While her hands worked, her mind planned. The station's central systems were vulnerable in specific ways that Kara, with her background in counterintelligence, knew how to exploit. Security protocols could be turned against themselves. Emergency systems could be repurposed to create distractions, to force evacuations, to clear paths. By the time she had finished her preparations, nearly 12 hours had passed since Leon's capture. Too long. The interrogation methods used by Council intelligence were brutally efficient. But Clara knew Leon, knew his surprising resilience, his stubborn will. He would hold out as long as possible. She just had to reach him before possible became too late. Strapping the last component of her makeshift exoskeleton into place, Kara felt the system engage, compensating for her weakened state. Power flowed through the crude circuitry, syncing with her movements, supporting her injured limbs. One final task remained before she could launch her rescue. Using the repair console, she accessed the station's environmental controls, carefully placing command overrides at critical junctures. When triggered, these would create a cascade of system failures designed to draw security away from the interrogation facility. As she worked, Kara's sensitive hearing picked up movement outside the storage bay. The rhythmic footsteps of a patrol approaching. She froze, weighing options. The patrol route would take them directly past her position. Discovery now would end any chance of rescuing Leon. Kara slipped behind a stack of crates, spear ready. The footsteps grew louder, then paused just outside the entrance to her hiding place. She controlled her breathing, her body perfectly still, despite the adrenaline surging through her system. A security drone hovered into view, a standard model used for routine sweeps of low-priority areas. Its sensors swept the room in a predictable pattern, searching for unauthorized life signs or movement. Kara calculated trajectories, timing. As the drone turned away, she struck, a single fluid motion that sent her spear through the drone's central processor. It dropped silently, disabled before it could transmit an alert. Moving quickly, Kara salvaged useful components from the fallen drone, adding them to her arsenal. Then, with one last check of her makeshift armor, she set her plan in motion. It was time to remind the Council why her species had been feared long before they developed space travel. Pain had become Leon's entire existence. The neural scanner attached to his eyes projected patterns directly into his visual cortex, patterns designed to synchronize with specific brain regions and extract the information stored in the nanocard embedded in his cornea. The interrogation chamber was clinically sterile, designed to maximize a prisoner's sense of isolation and vulnerability. No windows, no visible doors, just seamless walls, the chair to which he was restrained, and the machinery systematically breaking down his mental defenses. "Remarkable endurance," a voice commented from somewhere beyond his field of vision. "Most subjects reach neural collapse within the first 3 hours. He's approaching 12 and still resisting." "Xenovirus augmentation, perhaps?" a second voice suggested. "The alien may have enhanced him." A bitter laugh escaped Leon's cracked lips. If only they knew. His resistance came not from some sci-fi enhancement, but from something far more primitive. Pure stubborn will. The determination not to betray Kara, not to render meaningless her sacrifice in obtaining the data that could change everything. A face swam into view as the machine temporarily powered down, giving his brain a brief respite to prevent permanent damage. Commander Vex, head of Council intelligence operations in this sector, regarded him with clinical curiosity. "Why protect her?" Vex asked, sounding genuinely puzzled. "She's not even your species. What loyalty could possibly bind you to an alien?" Leon remained silent. Engaging would only give them psychological leverage. "The data will be extracted eventually," Vex continued conversationally. "The process is inevitable, but you could spare yourself considerable suffering by cooperating now." Still nothing. Vex sighed. "Very well. Increase neural pathway stimulation by 20%. Focus on memory centers linked to visual processing." The machine hummed back to life, and agony exploded behind Leon's eyes once more. He bit through his lip rather than scream, the taste of blood oddly grounding amidst the overwhelming pain. Through it all, he held to one thought. Kara was safe, hidden, and when he died here, she would continue their mission, would expose the corruption that had led to thousands of deaths on forgotten colony worlds. would make the sacrifice of those lives mean something. Time lost all meaning, stretching and compressing in strange ways as the neural scanner continued its work. Leon retreated deep into his mind, building mental barriers that even he hadn't known he possessed. A distant alarm penetrated his haze of pain. The neural scanner faltered momentarily as someone's attention was diverted. "Report!" Vex's sharp command cut through the fog. A crackle of static, then a voice thick with urgency. "Environmental failure in Sector 7. Atmospheric processors showing critical instability." "Handle it," Vex dismissed. "That's what emergency crews are for." "Sir, readings indicate possible radiation containment breach. Evacuation protocols?" "Override them," Vex snapped. "No one leaves their post. This subject is priority." Another alarm joined the first, then another, creating a cacophony that even the interrogation chamber's soundproofing couldn't completely muffle. "Sir," the voice returned, now edged with barely controlled panic. "Multiple system failures across all sectors. Primary reactor cooling showing anomalous patterns. Safety protocols recommend immediate evacuation of non-essential personnel." For the first time, uncertainty flickered across Vex's composed features. "Sabotage?" "Unknown, sir. But patterns suggest coordinated." The rest was lost as the lights in the interrogation chamber suddenly dimmed, emergency backups casting everything in a red glow. The neural scanner powered down completely. "What the hell is happening?" Vex demanded, moving to a control panel on the wall. The answer came in the form of an explosion that rocked the entire room, tearing the main door from its frame in a shower of metal and composite materials. Through the smoke and debris stepped a figure that caused Leon's heart to leap despite his exhausted state. Kara, but not as he had left her, weak and bleeding. This Kara moved with deadly purpose, her slender form encased in what appeared to be a crude exoskeleton assembled from salvaged parts. In one hand she held a spear fashioned from maintenance tools, its tip gleaming wickedly in the emergency lighting. In the other, a shield created from hull plating that she used to deflect a hasty shot from one of the guards. "I said, don't come back," Leon managed, his voice barely a whisper after hours of screaming. Kara's eyes found his, and despite everything, the pain, the danger, the sheer impossibility of their situation, Leon felt a surge of hope at the fierce determination he saw there. "I won't leave you," she replied, her voice steady and sure. Vex recovered from his shock with professional speed, drawing a weapon from a hidden holster. Not the standard issue neural disruptor, but something far more lethal. "Kill her!" he ordered the two guards flanking the ruined doorway. What followed was a blur of violence so swift that Leon, still reeling from the neural scanner's effects, could barely track it. Kara moved like liquid death, her exoskeleton augmenting her natural speed to something almost impossible to follow. Her spear found the first guard's throat before he could even raise his weapon. The second managed to fire, but Kara's shield intercepted the shot, the energy dissipating across its curved surface. Her counterstrike shattered the guard's knee, dropping him to the floor with a howl of pain. Vex fired 3 rapid shots, each aimed with deadly precision. 2 glanced off Kara's shield, but the third caught her exoskeleton's shoulder joint, damaging the crude mechanism. Her left arm drooped, suddenly dead weight, but she compensated instantly, switching her grip on the spear to a one-handed stance. With a guttural battle cry that echoed the primal hunting calls of her ancestors, Kara launched herself at Vex. The commander was good, better than his guards, with reactions honed by decades of field operations. He sidestepped her initial thrust, countering with a strike that would have incapacitated a normal opponent. But Kara was far from normal. Even injured, even with a damaged exoskeleton, she adapted with the fluid grace of a natural predator. Her foot lashed out, catching Vex's knee at precisely the right angle to disrupt his balance. As he staggered, her spear flashed forward, not for a killing blow, but a disabling one, piercing his dominant arm at the shoulder, rendering it useless. Vex's weapon clattered to the floor. Kara kicked it away, then brought the butt of her spear against his temple with carefully calculated force. The commander dropped unconscious but alive, a deliberate choice that Leon, even in his pain-addled state, recognized as significant. Kara could have killed him, probably wanted to, but she had chosen restraint. In moments, she was at Leon's side, deft fingers working at the restraints binding him to the chair. "Can you stand?" she asked, her voice calm despite the chaos surrounding them. Leon tested his legs as the restraints fell away. They felt like water, barely able to support his weight, but he forced them to cooperate. "Lead the way." Kara's arm slipped around his waist, supporting him as they moved toward the exit. The exoskeleton whirred and clicked, compensating for both their weights despite its damaged state. "How did you find me?" Leon asked as they navigated the smoke-filled corridor beyond the interrogation chamber. "Security feeds," Kara replied tersely. "And I know how Council intelligence operates. Centralized control, standard interrogation protocols." She guided them around a corner, away from the sounds of approaching security personnel. "The real question is what took you so long to get captured? I expected better from you." Despite everything, Leon found himself laughing, a weak, broken sound, but genuine. "Sorry to disappoint. I'll try to get caught faster next time." Kara's grip on him tightened briefly. "There won't be a next time." She paused at an intersection, checking both directions before continuing. "We have approximately 15 minutes before station security overrides my system disruptions. We need to reach the auxiliary docking bay before then." "Why there?" "Because that's where our ride is waiting." Leon wanted to ask more, but conserved his strength for moving. Each step was agony, his nervous system still reeling from the neural scanner's invasive probing. But with Kara's support, he managed to keep pace as they wound their way through the station's service corridors, avoiding the main thoroughfares where security would be concentrated. Twice they encountered patrols, but each time Kara's quick thinking and quicker reflexes saved them. Once by ducking into a maintenance shaft seconds before guards rounded a corner. The second time by using her spear with surgical precision to disable 2 guards before they could raise an alarm. As they approached the auxiliary docking bay, a new alarm joined the cacophony already echoing through the station. "What's that?" Leon asked, recognizing a different pattern to the alert. "Radiation containment failure in the primary reactor," Kara replied, the ghost of a smile touching her lips. "Or so the system believes." "You didn't." "I did. The system is currently convinced that a catastrophic meltdown is imminent. All non-essential personnel are being evacuated, including most of security." "Remind me never to get on your bad side," Leon muttered. They reached the auxiliary docking bay without further incident, emerging onto a platform overlooking a cavernous space designed for maintenance drones and supply vessels. Most of the bays stood empty, their occupants long since reassigned or scrapped. But in one bay, a cargo drone waited, an outdated model with a boxy transport compartment and simple navigational systems. Kara moved toward it with purpose, her steps growing more labored as the exoskeleton's power reserves dwindled. "That's our escape plan?" Leon couldn't keep the doubt from his voice. The drone looked barely capable of atmospheric flight, let alone the space travel they would need to rendezvous with Terok. "It's better than it looks," Kara assured him, placing her palm against the drone's access panel. To Leon's surprise, the panel lit up, recognizing her biometric signature. "I made some modifications." The drone's cargo compartment opened with a hydraulic hiss, revealing an interior that had been completely reconfigured. The standard cargo restraints had been replaced with 2 makeshift seats, and the control systems had been rerouted to a manual interface within reach of the occupants. "You did all this while injured?" Leon asked, incredulous. Kara's expression was unreadable as she helped him into one of the seats. "Motivation is a powerful force." Before Leon could respond, alarms blared throughout the docking bay. A security door on the far side began to cycle open, revealing armed figures pouring into the space. "Time to go," Kara said, sliding into the second seat as the cargo compartment door began to close. Through the narrowing gap, Leon caught a glimpse of Commander Vex, his injured arm in a crude sling, raising a weapon with his uninjured hand. "Stop them!" the commander shouted, firing even as the compartment sealed shut. The projectile struck the drone's hull with a metallic ping, but didn't penetrate. Kara's fingers flew across the makeshift control panel, bypassing standard launch protocols with practiced efficiency. "Will this thing hold together?" Leon asked, watching security forces surround their position. "Long enough to get us clear of the station," Kara replied, her focus absolute. "After that, we'll see." The drone hummed to life, repulsors engaging with a surge of power that pressed them back into their makeshift seats. Through a small viewport, Leon could see security forces scattering as the drone rose, clearing the docking clamps that had held it in place. "They'll seal the bay doors," he warned, watching as officers scrambled toward control panels on the walls. "Already ahead of you," Kara responded, inputting a final command sequence. An explosion rocked the far side of the docking bay, and suddenly the massive doors began to slide open, not in the controlled manner of a normal launch, but in the erratic jerks of emergency override. "What did you do?" Leon asked, gripping his seat as the drone accelerated toward the opening. "Convince the station that there's a fire in the auxiliary docking bay," Kara explained, a note of satisfaction in her voice. "Emergency protocols require venting to space to prevent spread to vital systems." As the doors widened, the atmosphere in the bay began to rush toward the opening, carrying loose equipment and scrambling security personnel with it. Vex alone stood his ground, magnetized boots keeping him anchored as he raised his weapon for another shot. The projectile struck the drone's engine housing with enough force to send them into a spin. Warning lights flashed across the control panel as Kara fought to stabilize their flight path. "Hold on!" she shouted, diverting power to the damaged systems. The drone lurched forward, straight toward the still opening bay doors. For a heart-stopping moment, Leon thought they wouldn't make it. The gap looked too small, their trajectory too unstable. Then they were through, bursting into the star-filled blackness of space beyond Harpex 9. Behind them, the station receded, its massive form silhouetted against the blue-white curve of the planet below. "We made it," Leon breathed, scarcely believing it. Kara's hand still moved across the controls, her expression tense. "Not yet. The station's defense systems will target us as soon as they realize what's happening." As if summoned by her words, a warning tone sounded from the console. "Weapon systems active," an automated voice announced. "Target lock initiated." "Can we outrun them?" Leon asked, watching as Kara plotted an evasive course away from the station. "Not in this," she admitted, "but we don't need to." With a final keystroke, she activated what appeared to be a secondary propulsion system, one that Leon was certain cargo drones were never designed to have. The acceleration slammed them back into their seats with crushing force. Stars blurred outside the viewport as the drone shot away from Harpex 9 at speeds it was never meant to achieve. "What the hell did you install?" Leon gasped when he could finally speak again. "Emergency booster from a security interceptor," Kara replied, her voice strained with the effort of remaining conscious under the intense G-forces. "Extremely powerful, extremely unstable." "How unstable?" The drone shuddered violently, as if in answer to his question. Warning indicators flashed across the console, systems overloading under the strain. "We have maybe 5 minutes before it tears this drone apart," Kara said matter-of-factly. Leon stared at her, then began to laugh despite the pain it caused his abused body. "You know, when I pictured us escaping together, I imagined something a little less suicidal?" Kara supplied, the ghost of a smile touching her lips. "I was going to say exciting, but your word works too." The minutes that followed were among the longest of Leon's life. The drone bucked and shuddered as it pushed far beyond its design limitations. Components failed one after another, each shutdown narrowing their already slim chances of survival. But just as the situation seemed hopeless, a new object appeared on their navigational display. A ship, small but powerful, hovering at the edge of the system's asteroid belt. "Is that?" Leon began, hardly daring to hope. Kara nodded, exhaustion evident in every line of her face. "Our rendezvous. Terok received my message." Terok, a smuggler who owed Kara a life debt, though she had never explained exactly how that debt had been incurred. Leon had met him only once, a gruff, scaled being with a talent for appearing exactly when needed and disappearing just as quickly. "Can we reach him before this thing falls apart?" Leon asked, eyeing the increasingly erratic warning indicators. "We'll find out," Kara replied grimly, adjusting their course with hands that trembled from exhaustion and pain. The drone lurched again, more violently this time. A section of hull plating tore away, spinning off into the void. Warning klaxons blared as the cabin began to lose pressure. "We're not going to make it," Leon realized, watching as the distance to Terok's ship decreased too slowly. Kara's response was immediate and unexpected. "We will." She punched a series of commands into the console, then turned to Leon with fierce determination in her eyes. But not like this. Before he could ask what she meant, a compartment opened in the floor between their seats, revealing what looked like two pressure suits, salvaged and patched, but intact. "Put it on," Kara ordered, already struggling into one despite her injuries. "Quickly." Leon complied, understanding dawning as he sealed the helmet over his head. The suits had built-in propulsion systems, short range, meant for emergency repairs or debris retrieval, not long-distance travel. "You're insane," he said, but there was admiration mixed with a disbelief in his voice. "Probably," Kara agreed, her voice now coming through the suit's communication system. "But do you have a better idea?" Leon looked at the disintegrating drone around them, then at the distant ship that represented their only hope of escape. "Lead the way." Kara activated the final sequence on the drone's console. Emergency jettison of the cargo compartment. The world seemed to explode around them. One moment they were inside the failing drone. The next, they were tumbling through space, the cargo compartment shattering around them as explosive bolts separated it from the main structure. Leon activated his suit's stabilizers, fighting to control his trajectory as debris spun past him in deadly spirals. Through the chaos, he caught glimpses of Kara doing the same, her movements precise despite her injuries. "Head for Terok's ship," her voice crackled through his comm. "Maximum burn. Don't stop for anything." Leon oriented himself toward the distant vessel and fired his suit's propulsion system at full power. The acceleration was nothing like the drone's emergency booster, but it was steady, pushing him through the void at a pace that slowly but surely closed the distance to safety. Behind them, the remainder of the cargo drone finally succumbed to the stresses placed upon it, exploding in a brief, brilliant flare that illuminated the darkness. The shockwave caught them moments later, sending both tumbling once more before their stabilizers could compensate. "Kara!" Leon called, momentarily losing sight of her in the chaos. "Still here," came the response, tighter now, strained. "Keep going." Their suit's propulsion systems were never designed for the distance they were attempting to cover. Fuel reserves dropped rapidly, power indicators shifting from green to yellow to ominous red. "We're not going to make it," Leon realized, watching as his suit's remaining fuel approached critical levels. "Yes, we are," Kara insisted, her voice now barely above a whisper. "Look." Terok's ship had changed course, moving to intercept them. The smuggler had realized their desperate situation and was closing the gap from his end. Relief flooded through Leon, but it was short-lived. A glance at Kara showed that her suit's propulsion system had failed completely. She was drifting now, her trajectory taking her away from both Leon and the approaching ship. Without hesitation, Leon altered his course, using the last of his fuel to reach her. "What are you doing?" she demanded, her voice weak but still carrying that note of command that had first impressed him months ago when they'd reluctantly become allies. "What does it look like?" Leon replied, closing the distance between them. "I'm not leaving you." His arms closed around her, just as his propulsion system sputtered and died. Together they drifted through the void, their momentum carrying them in a slow arc that might, or might not, intersect with Terok's approaching vessel. "Now we're both stranded," Kara murmured, but there was no anger in her voice. "Always the hero, aren't you?" "Learn from the best," Leon replied, nodding toward Terok's ship, now clearly visible and approaching rapidly. The ship's docking bay opened as they drew near, its illuminated interior a beacon of safety in the endless dark. But at their current trajectory, they would miss it by mere meters, an unbridgeable distance in the vacuum of space. Leon's eyes fell on a piece of debris tumbling alongside them, a twisted strut torn from the cargo drone during its explosive decompression. An impossible idea formed in his mind. "I have a plan," he said, reaching for the debris with careful movements that wouldn't disrupt their trajectory. "But it's risky." "When are your plans not risky?" Kara replied, but she made no move to stop him. Leon secured the strut, testing its weight and balance in the microgravity of space. It was roughly the length of his arm, one end twisted into a sharp point by the force of the explosion that had torn it free. "Watch and learn," he said, a confidence he didn't entirely feel infusing his voice. With precise calculations that would have made his old flight instructor proud, Leon hurled the makeshift javelin toward Terok's ship. It spun through the void, glinting in the light of distant stars, and struck the edge of the docking bay entrance, embedding itself in the metal frame. Attached to the strut was a thin filament, part of Leon's suit's emergency tether, never meant to be used as he was about to use it, but their only hope now. "Hold on to me," he instructed, beginning to reel in the filament that now connected them to the ship. Kara's arms tightened around him as they slowly, painfully made their way toward the open docking bay. The filament strained with each pull, threatening to snap under the stress of supporting two bodies even in the microgravity of space. Just as they reached the threshold of the bay, the filament gave way with a silent snap. For a heart-stopping moment, they drifted, centimeters from safety but unable to bridge the final gap. Then a scaled arm shot out, massive clawed fingers closing around Leon's shoulder with bruising force, yanking them both into the ship. The docking bay door closed behind them as atmosphere flooded the chamber. They collapsed to the deck as gravity reasserted itself, Leon cushioning Kara's fall with his own body. Through her helmet visor, he could see that she was barely conscious, the last of her strength spent in their desperate escape. But her eyes found his, and despite everything, the pain, the exhaustion, the 1,000 narrow escapes that had brought them to this moment, she smiled. "I told you we'd make it," she whispered. Leon laughed, the sound carrying equal parts relief and disbelief. "Never doubted you for a second." Hours later, with their wounds treated and Terok's ship safely navigating the outer reaches of the system where Council influence was weakest, Leon stood at a viewport, watching the stars drift past. The door hissed open behind him. He turned to see Kara, her injuries properly tended now, her blue skin regaining some of its healthy luster. She moved with careful grace, favoring her right side where the neural regenerators were still repairing damaged tissue. "You should be resting," he said. "So should you," she countered, moving to stand beside him at the viewport. "Neural trauma doesn't heal overnight. Neither does nearly dying of blood loss, yet here you are." A comfortable silence fell between them, the kind that only develops between people who have faced death together and emerged stronger for it. "What happens now?" Leon finally asked, his hand unconsciously moving to his eye where the nanocard still rested, invisible but containing information that could reshape the political landscape of known space. Kara considered the question, her gaze fixed on the stars beyond the viewport. "Now we finish what we started. We take the data to people who can use it, independent journalists, colony world representatives, anyone not compromised by Council influence. And then?" She turned to face him fully, her expression resolute. "Then we keep fighting, until the truth is known, until those responsible are held accountable, until the colonies lost to Krell incursions receive justice." Leon nodded, having expected nothing less. Kara had never been one to abandon a mission halfway, no matter the cost. It was one of the many qualities he had come to admire about her during their unlikely partnership. "Together?" he asked simply. Kara's hand found his, cool blue fingers intertwining with his own, in a gesture that bridged their physiological differences as surely as their shared purpose had bridged their cultural ones. "Together," she confirmed, the word carrying the weight of a promise. Outside the viewport, the galaxy continued its eternal dance, unaware that two unlikely allies carried within them the seeds of change that would reshape its political foundations. Whatever came next, pursuit by Council forces, the challenges of exposing corruption deeply embedded in galactic governance, the dangers inherent in challenging powerful interests, they would face it as they had faced everything else, side by side, step by step, each refusing to leave the other behind.